leader I'm walking you through today is called invisible catalyst. The phrase comes from chemistry. A catalyst is a substance that makes a reaction happen faster, cheaper, more reliably, without being consumed by the reaction itself. That is what fractional tech leaders do for small and mid-sized businesses like the ones you serve. You are the catalyst. The client reacts, growth happens, or doesn't. The word invisible is the part of the title I want you to focus on because the central finding of the study, after more than 500 interviews in 2025, is that most of you are invisible to the market, to the buyer, to your own pipeline. I want to open by telling you about two fractional tech leaders we interviewed. I'll call them the first and the second. Same year, same advanced technical education, same 10 plus years of executive experience. Both fit the demographics almost perfectly. 6 months after our first interview, the first fractional tech leader was charging a top rate, $12,000 per month per anchor client with a wait list. The second fractional tech leader was looking for work. The difference, it's not skill. The skill bars are almost identical. The difference is what this briefing is about. Quick read on the methodology so you can calibrate the rest of what I'm going to tell you. 550 plus participants, 2025 field period, 6 core respondent profiles, 3 challenge domains: positioning, business development, and client management. The two fractional tech leaders I'm going to follow across this briefing are drawn from that pool. Every behavior I'll describe came from actual interview transcripts. None of it is theoretical. This is the demographic snapshot of our pool, and it's the snapshot of the fractional tech leaders in our story. A seasoned executive working a part-time model. Many titles: CTO, CIO, CISO, Chief AI Officer, COO, CDO, but one underlining leadership function: advanced technical education, 10 plus years of experience, strong leadership and communication. Pricing range, and this is the line I want you to study: $150 to $500 an hour, $85,000 to $250,000 per year. That range is not a function of experience. We controlled for it. Both of the fractional tech leaders I'm following had the same number of years. Both had the same credentials. The difference between the bottom of the range and the top of the range is the entrepreneurial reality in the third box on the slide. Financial acumen, negotiation, persuasion, governance awareness. The first fractional tech leader had built for those four. The second fractional tech leader believed his technical excellence would speak for itself. 6 demand drivers. Both fractional technology leaders in our story could deliver every one of them. Cost-effective leadership, specialized expertise, flexibility and scale, rapid impact, leadership gap coverage, risk and objectivity. The demand is real. The market is growing. Both of our fractional tech leaders were competing for the same buyers. The question this briefing answers is why one of them converted and one didn't. Part 1 of the study is acquisition. The report groups acquisition problems into 6 recurring issues: low market awareness, weak buyer targeting, poor differentiation, slow trust formation, limited marketing systems, and rising competition. The first fractional tech leader had built systems to address all 6. The second fractional tech leader was still relying on what had worked early in his career, namely a strong LinkedIn profile, a handful of past colleagues willing to refer him. That strategy works until your past colleagues run out. Then it stops working. And nothing in the second fractional technology leaders process replaced it. 3 numbers on the slide. Each one is one of the failure modes the second fractional tech leader never solved. 88% of fractional tech leaders report low market understanding. The SMB market doesn't know what a fractional tech leader is, what one does, or what the engagement is supposed to produce. That's a messaging problem. 65% of the time, the economic buyer in the SMB is the CFO, not the CEO, not the IT manager. The CFO speaks a different language than the technologist. So if your pitch is technically dense, the CFO doesn't say no. They say, let me think about it. And then they never come back. 73% of new business is referrals. That's not a brag. That's a warning. It means anything past your existing referral network is unreachable to you. That's an infrastructure problem. The first fractional tech leader had translated his messaging into business outcomes. He built CFO fluent collateral. He constructed an outbound system that produced qualified pipeline without requiring a referral. The second fractional tech leader hadn't done any of those things, and the moment his referral well ran dry, his entire pipeline went with it. That is what slide 6 is measuring. The CFO. 65% of the time, this is the person who decides whether you're hired. 3 things to know. Finance leads decision logic, meaning the CFO is not just signing the check. The CFO is running the analysis that justifies the check. The CFO has the most influence in small firms because in small firms, often there isn't a CIO to push back against the finance function. And this is the underrated finding. Technology priorities are rising in the CFO's portfolio. The CFO is being asked to evaluate AI, cybersecurity, and infrastructure decisions they weren't asked to evaluate just 3 years ago. Look at the buyer mix on the right. 65% CFO, 20% CEO or owner, 10% IT manager, 5% other. The first fractional tech leader built 3 artifacts: a 1-page ROI summary for the CFO, a strategic narrative for the CEO, and a technical integration plan for the IT manager. Same engagement, 3 documents calibrated to 3 readers. The second fractional tech leader handed the same 15-slide technical deck to every reader in the room. The CFO did not ask a follow-up question, and the deal closed with 0%. The 4 moves. The acquisition playbook in its entirety. Translate tech into business value. Every recommendation lands as a dollar figure or risk mitigated number, not a feature. Narrow the sweet spot. I work for SMB manufacturers between 30 and 100 million in revenue who are about to face a cybersecurity audit. That sentence outperforms I help SMBs with technology strategy by a factor of 5 in our research. Show process early. Send the prospect your process document before the first call. The prospect knows what to expect. The trust formation that usually takes 3 meetings happens in 1. Build simple systems. A CRM with 5 fields, a newsletter cadence, a 2-stage email sequence after discovery call. Nothing elaborate. Nothing that requires a marketing team. Just something that exists when you are not personally working the deal. Both fractional tech leaders have been told these 4 moves. The first spent 2 weekends implementing them. The second intended to get to it and didn't. Part 2 of the study, retention. Acquisition is the first obstacle. It's not the only one. Once an engagement begins, the work shifts. It shifts from selling expertise to protecting scope, integrating with teams, managing capacity, and making long-term ROI visible. Both of our fractional tech leaders eventually landed clients. The first held on to his. The second lost his within the first 9 months. Same client profile, same opening contract, different operating discipline. 3 numbers again. 66% of fractional tech leaders say long-term engagement models are difficult. Long-term means the client stops paying for what's new and starts paying for what's steady, and steady is harder to demonstrate value on. 71% report that scope creep happens often. This is the capacity tension. You signed up for 10 hours a week, but by month 4, the client is treating you like a 20-hour-a-week employee. 63% report team integration friction. This is the value decay. You're a fractional leader. The client's internal team is full-time. Without explicit integration design, your influence fades as the internal team takes over the daily work and your engagement gets renegotiated downward. The first fractional tech leader had explicit answers for all 3. Long-term value framing in his quarterly business review, written scope protections in his statement of work, a formal integration plan with the client's internal team. The second fractional tech leader had handshakes. Handshakes do not survive a budget cycle. The retention playbook, 4 behaviors. Deliver visible wins early. Inside the first 30 days, produce one thing the client can point to in a board meeting. That 30-day win is the anchor of every renewal conversation for the next 3 years. Build rapport inside the client, not just with your sponsor, with the sponsor's peers, with the team you work alongside, with the finance team that's going to make the renewal decision. The day your sponsor leaves the company, the relationships you built around them are what protect the engagement. Control scope explicitly, quarterly, in writing, read out loud in a meeting. The fractional tech leaders who say, I don't want to make this weird, are the ones whose engagement decays inside 2 quarters. Create an operating cadence. Same as we saw in the trust and value briefing, monthly executive review, weekly working sessions. The cadence is what makes value visible. Without cadence, the value is real but invisible, and invisible value gets cut at the next budget meeting. If you take 3 sentences home from this briefing, take these 3. The role is valuable but misunderstood. The market needs you. The market doesn't know it needs you. The gap is the work. Winning requires CFO language, not technologist language, not consultant language. Translate every time into the language of the person who actually controls the budget. Retention is earned through systems, not talent. Not through likability, through repeatable behaviors that make value visible and scope predictable. The first fractional tech leader had internalized all 3. The second agreed to all 3 when asked directly, but he was operating against all 3 in his day-to-day practice. The gap between knowing and practicing is where most fractional careers stall. The visible catalyst report exists to close that gap. I want to be direct with this slide because the report is. Fractional tech leaders value efficiency and best practice. Most of you in our interviews told us you knew what you needed to do, you just hadn't done it. The reason is structural. As a fractional tech leader, your time is your inventory. Every hour you spend building your systems is an hour you didn't bill. So you defer it. You promise yourself you'll get to it next quarter. And in the meantime, you live on referrals. The report's finding is the line at the bottom of the slide. You will fail beyond referrals without an effective system. Not might fail, will fail. The referral well is finite. Every fractional career we tracked across the arc that didn't build the system either plateaued or ended. The framework on this slide is what underlies the system. It's 4 layers. External trust, the market's perception of you before you've spoken. Your LinkedIn profile, your case studies, your referenceable clients. This is what gets you in the room. Persuasion, The deliberate work of changing a prospect's belief during the sale, not coercion, information delivery in a sequence the buyer can absorb. This is what gets you engagement. Influence, the post-engagement currency. Your ability to move a client's decision, change a roadmap, shape a budget because they trust your judgment. This is what gets you the renewal. And internal trust, the foundation, your own clarity about what you do, who you do it for, and why your work matters. Without internal trust, the other three are unreliable. You can fake one of them on a good day, but you can't fake all four for an entire engagement. The strategic impact arrow on this slide is the through line. External trust earns persuasion, persuasion earns influence, influence compounds back into external trust, and the whole thing is anchored by the internal trust you bring to it. The first fractional tech leader was operating consciously on all four. The second was operating unconsciously on one, internal trust, and assuming the other three would happen automatically. They don't. This is the system, the three pillars. Each one has two components beneath it. Pillar one is clarity, positioning. Underneath positioning sits marketing and thought leadership. So marketing is the deliberate broadcast of who you are. Thought leadership is the slow accumulation of credibility through published work. Together, they produce external trust. Pillar two, pipeline, business development. Underneath business development sits your sales activities. This is the work that turns awareness into a pipeline. Outbound, follow-up, proposal, contract. The repeatable mechanics of converting interest into engagement. Pillar three, retention, client management. Underneath client management sits relationship and fulfillment. Relationship is the rapport that keeps the engagement renewing. Fulfillment is the delivery quality that justifies the rapport. Together, they produce long-term revenue. The first fractional tech leader had built deliberate systems under each of the three pillars. Nothing exotic. A weekly time block for marketing, a monthly time block for outbound, a standing client review cadence, about 4 hours a week of discipline total. The second fractional tech leader had built none of it. He had 4 hours a week available. He spent them on technical work because that was the work he was best at and most comfortable with. That choice is the entire study summarized in one sentence. Both fractional technology leaders had time. One spent it on the system, one spent it on the work the system was supposed to feed. 2 next steps. The full study lives at galson.com/invisible-catalyst. It goes deeper than I had time for today. The methodology, the additional findings, the segment-specific breakdowns by FTL profile. If you want a personal diagnostic, we built one. It takes about 10 minutes. galson.com/assessment. It scores you against the 3 pillars, and you'll see which one of the 4 trust layers is your weakest. We use it with every fractional tech leader we advise. I'll close with this. The reason the report is called Invisible Catalyst is that the work you do is real, the value you deliver is real, and the market mostly does not see it. That is not a problem you can solve by being better at your craft. It's a problem you solve by building a system that makes the work visible. The first fractional technology leader did. The second didn't. 12 months later, the gap between them was not skill, it was visibility. The work of the next 6 months is to stop being invisible.